We're diving into the world of composting toilets, how they work, what different kinds there are, care, maintenance, do's and don'ts, and the reality of both using them and owning them. Whether you're in a tiny home like us looking at doing some off-grid living, or you just found yourself going down a YouTube rabbit hole at 3 in the morning, either way, we've got you covered. Plus, we're going to talk about some of the drawbacks to owning and using a composting toilet at the end of this video. So stick around if you really want to know about that nitty-gritty. But first up, let's talk about the basics. Unlike traditional toilets, composting toilets use a natural process to break down the waste. But don't worry, they are designed to be safe, clean, efficient, and odor-free. Yes, odor-free. Now, all composting toilets have 2 different compartments. You have the first one for your number 2s, or you'll hear people refer to as your solids, and you have the other compartment for your number 1s, or your liquids. And because of this separation between the solids and the liquids, it drastically reduces any sort of smell, because it's when you mix those two that stuff starts to happen, toxins form, and it gets pretty septic and gross. I'm pretty sure that's where the term septic field and septic tank and all that stuff comes from. But regardless, that mixture is the bad thing, so this separates it and keeps that smell to an absolute minimum. And if there is a smell, generally you're probably doing something wrong. You want to look into actually cleaning your toilet or reviewing your process and how you're using it. Still, there's some that have a built-in exhaust like this one here. There's an exhaust fan inside that exhausts any potential odors to the outside. This just helps me ensure I control any odors that might start forming if I haven't quite caught up my cleaning yet. Generally though, if there are any odors, it's probably because you're doing something wrong. These, I find, are actually less smelly than a traditional toilet. From here though, there are 2 different types of composting toilets. Ones that actually have a composting effect occurring as you're using it, and the second one, the composting occurs later. The ones that do the effect then and there and house in the toilet itself usually have an auger that actually mix it with a breakdown component, if you will, a natural material. Usually it's peat moss, coco coir, or in our case, pine shavings. Those are the 3 really common ones, but it mixes it up and it creates that composting effect in the toilet. And when it's done being used, you empty it into a bag or into a composting area and away you go. The other ones, like what we have, is it's actually contained in a bag itself, and you take that bag out, dispose of it, and the composting occurs afterwards. So there are drawbacks to both. One being, if you're using one like this, you have to remove a bag of your waste, and on the other one, you have to mix it and then dump your composted solids into a bag. It can be a little bit more dirty. The other one it's up to your opinion on which one you want. From there though, there's again 2 more kinds. There's kinds that actually have a jug on the front that usually house a couple liters of liquid, and that's where your liquid is diverted to. And you have to empty that jug probably on a daily basis because it fills up rather quick. Other ones, like the one we have liquids diverted, and it goes out with gray water. So wherever it comes out from your sink, from your wash machine, that's where it's diverted and goes out with that. But the biggest thing I know a lot of people are wondering about when they're first getting into composting toilets is, how do you use it? Let me show you. Here is a composting toilet. Inside are 2 different sections. The first is for solids and the second is for liquids. When you sit down on the seat, a trap door opens up. Your solids drop inside and your liquids get taken away through the diversion tube. Yes, this means you're going to have to situate yourself on that seat just right. Its positioning is going to be important to make sure that your solids drop back and your liquids drop forward. It can be a learning curve to get over, but once you figure it out in the first couple uses, you're set to go from there. It's pretty easy. It's like riding a bike after that. But from there, once you've done your business, it's as easy as putting some material on top of it. This material is going to be equals to flushing a toilet. I already mentioned peat moss, coco coir, and pine shavings. Those are the standard ones. I've heard bad things about peat moss and moisture content. Most people steer clear of it. Some have had good luck, but we've never used it. We have used coco coir, which is more apt to be used with the ones with the auger, because it's kind of helping that composting a bit quicker to start and get going. For ours, being that the composting takes effect afterwards, we use pine shavings. Now, pine shavings are super cheap too. Coco coir is a bit more expensive. We go to like an animal store with like chickens and stuff. You can get a giant bag of this for like $10 Canadian, and it lasts us forever. So when we're done, all we do is put a scoop of this directly onto our number 2s. Take it, dump it in, we're good to go. Don't put it on top of the trap door and then expect it to dump. You have to open the trap door, put it directly on top. You want this to actually contact your solids, because this is gonna help actually soak up moisture and really helps prevent any sort of smells. So when I said if you do have odors, you're doing something wrong, this is probably it. You want to use more of this in contact with your poop. Let's be honest, it's poop. Yeah, we're gonna open up this now and we'll show you the inside mechanisms and how this actually all works from here. Couple latches, hold it open, nice and easy. There is an exhaust fan, as I already mentioned there, and a little filter you can just take and give it a clean every once in a while. Now I did clean this today, give it a nice good cleaning in here so you can see it's spick and span. Dust builds up once in a while from the material you use or from toilet paper, because toilet paper is notorious for dust. But this is where your number 2s go, and this is where your number 1s are diverted to. You can see it goes away and out through gray water. So I mentioned that in this style, the composting happens later. You take it away in a bag. These are the bags. They are biodegradable bags. You can just order these on Amazon. We actually use these for just our everyday garbage bags now because it is way better for the environment. Now the reason these are way better for the environment is because, as I mentioned, biodegradable, they're gone in only a few months. So, comparatively speaking to a plastic counterpart that is up to 100 years to actually degrade away, you have your waste material in here, dispose of it potentially in a compost pile where you can use for gardens, and wherever you dispose of it, it's going to be gone in months. I think human excrement actually takes longer to decompose than these bags do. And now from there, once the bag is filled up enough, you take the bag, tie it off, and away it goes. Just to be safe, we usually double layer the bag, so I'll be putting on another bag later. But for now, I gotta get back to this video, because when you really think about how effective these are and how good they are for the environment compared to a traditional toilet, it actually will blow your mind. Because a standard flush toilet uses approximately 6 liters or 1.6 gallons per flush. Now the average person uses about 7,000 liters or 1,850 gallons per month alone. So times that by however many people live in your household, and that's much water is literally going down the drain. With these, there's no water. Well, there could be some water, because I do recommend when you're done your number 1, you pour a glass of water down just to rinse your drainage out. So there's half a liter, quarter liter per number 1. It's negligible is what I'm saying. So now that I've laid down the basics of composting toilets, you probably have some more questions. And trust me, I did my research, I had people messaging all this sort of stuff, and I figured out the questions you probably have. And first and foremost, the question everyone wanted to know was, do they smell? I covered that already. If you work it right, they're meant to not smell. But another one is, how much do they cost? What's the cost of a composting toilet? They are about $1,200 to $1,500 Canadian. I'll put up here the US translation of costs and comparison for that, so you can take a look at what it would cost for you. I know Amazon has them. You can just go buy one. Now, how do you get rid of your liquids and solids? I told you it was diverted, and you compost one and the other one goes out with your gray water. So how does that work? Well, I mean, if you think about it, people throw diapers out all the time, so I wouldn't say it's anything strange to really throw your compost bags out with trash typically. But I do recommend that you find somewhere where you can compost it. That's probably going to be a better way of doing it. You might run into some legal issues if you are just dumping it into public garbage. And second, your liquids are going to go out with your gray water. Now, whether you are somewhere where you have hookups that your gray water can go into a septic field or sewer, that is fantastic. If not, what you're going to want to do is run it out to a gravel field, kind of like create your own gray water septic field. So dig a bit of a ditch, fill it up with gravel, and run your gray water into that. It basically from there disperses into the ground. A lot of houses actually do work on septic fields still to this day. Yeah, it's just kind of how it works for a lot of people still. And a big one that kept coming up from a lot of people was, can you put toilet paper into a composting toilet? Yes. it's a composting material. It's paper. It is natural. The only thing is you want to make sure that this doesn't cover up too much of your waste. You want to have your material, your shavings, your peat moss, whatever you're using, to come more in contact with it if at all possible. Altogether, all three, your waste, this, and the toilet paper will break down, and will break down very quickly. You just don't want to create a smelly situation with too much of that. And too much of that will also fill up your toilet a lot faster, which means you have to change it a lot more often. But you certainly can put toilet paper in your composting toilet. Now, what kind of toilet do we have? What's our model? What's our style? It is a separate Villa. It's made in Sweden. It's awesome. I don't know if separate is the name because it separates the solids and the liquids, but that's good name, good marketing if it is. So now, what are the negatives for composting toilets? Well, the negative for dudes, for guys, for anyone who needs to stand and pee means you cannot stand and pee in a composting toilet. Here's your point of view. You need to relieve yourself. Go number one. That is a very, very small target. Yeah, you're gonna splash very easily. So there's even directions right here on the toilet lid that it came with that show you have to sit down, you cannot stand. So if you stand to pee, you're gonna have to sit down instead. Manual removal of your own waste is probably the most obvious one. That's gonna be a drawback from composting toilets. Yes, when it's full, you have to take a garbage bag of your waste and walk it through your home and dispose of it. It sounds kind of gross. I mean, it kind of is, I'm not gonna lie. It's still kind of yucky, but it's not that bad. You really do get used to it. And even still, when you're removing that bag, there is an odor, but it's not horrible. It is a drawback to remove it, but you get used to it real quick. I mean, people change diapers all the time. There's people in elderly homes, you know, helping those who soil themselves. It's kind of normal, honestly, when you really think about it. So taking a bag out every once in a while, it's not terrible. Now, we're talking about this clearly because this is a curiosity topic for you. You may not know about this. You may not be sure if you want to use one of these or implement one in your home. So it is something people are reluctant about, something that they don't know about, something that they need to learn about. So company, when they come over, they're generally not sure how to use it. People don't really want to use it if they come over to your house. And if they do use it, then when you remove your waste, you're also removing their waste. So that's a drawback too. They're also not the most aesthetically pleasing. I mean, it looks large, clunky. It kind of looks like something straight out of an RV or a camper, which I mean, they kind of are used in them more often than homes. So yeah, it's not the prettiest of units. Now this leads us to our final drawback. The final drawback is something we had to learn the hard way, and we had to purchase this. Because there's no flushing, there's no water involved in this toilet. I mean, that's why I recommend you do flush. You keep a little glass on hand to flush when you're done your number ones. But because there's no water built in, you can forget to flush. And urine can crystallize. There's minerals in urine, and it can harden and build up over time. And because of that buildup, you can actually have a urinal clog. So I highly recommend every 6 to 8 months or so, you pour a bit of urinal cleaner into that drain. But that is a big drawback, and one no one's really ever talked about as far as I'm aware. So to prevent buildup, you may not have to use this if you were on top of putting water down after every use. Since we had that issue, we are much better with putting the water down there, and we have this on hand just in case, and every few months we pour a little bit down, just for good measure. But yeah, that's definitely a drawback for the composting toilet. But even with any drawback I can think of, they are designed to be user-friendly. They're designed to be cleaned, well-maintained, not smell. That's what they're for. So once you get over the idea of manually removing your own waste, you're kind of good to go from there. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check out our other videos on our wicked life, living in a tiny home, and we'll see you later. Thanks for watching.